Righto, Teliodo Champs, hope you're all doing well. Now these two laptops represent the fastest gaming laptops you can buy. Yes, on the left we have the ROG Duo 16. This laptop comes with an AMD 6900HX and an RTX 3080 Ti 165 watt version. So pretty much the fastest CPU AMD has. There is one faster CPU, the 6980HX. It's not going to be much faster than the CPU in this Zephyrus. And on the right hand side we have the Legion 7i. And this comes with Intel's 12900HX and an RTX 3080 Ti. This is a 175 watt version. Now these represent the fastest gaming laptops. On the left you have the fastest thin and premium laptop for gaming with the Zephyrus Duo, and on the right you have the fastest musclebook with the Legion 7i. Now there may be other laptops in this conversation like for example the Alienware X17. That will compare nicely with this Zephyrus Duo. But for thin and premium sort of 16-inch laptops, you're not going to get any faster than that Zephyrus. And with this Legion 7i, you're not going to get much faster than this when it comes to musclebook. So this is a musclebook. This is a thin and premium laptop. They're not comparable, but it's going to give you an idea. What's the difference between the fastest thin and premium and the fastest musclebook? And yes, other laptops can compare. GE76 Raider, the Alienware M17, which still holds my record for the most watts sustained in a laptop. But yeah, it doesn't really get any better than this 7i. So yesterday I did compare the CPU. You get around 16,000 Cinebench with this one. You get around 23,000 Cinebench with this one here. Now the difference is, uses 100 watts, uses up to 175 watts, okay? There's a big difference in wattage there. So I'll just bring those Cinebench scores up there. I did get nearly 16,000 on this one, and this one does 23,000. So yeah, let's see the difference between these gaming. We will see these gaming live and we'll see the thermals live in a sec, but you can see there is a big difference in the, the score there. GPU score, this is 3,000 points faster, and overall it is like, whatever, 3,500 faster overall. Now remember, musclebook, 175 watt GPU, and you can use like a copious amount of watts in the CPU as well. Both great performance, and if you just look there, 120 frames versus 110, you're not going to really notice the difference there. But let's see Time Spy. So here's the Time Spy score, and as you can see there, CPU score crushes it. 175 watts, what do you expect? And GPU score, it is faster as well. That's what you get when you have more power. But if you look 130 frames versus 110 frames, again, maybe you could notice that a little bit if you're really, sensitive to these sort of things, but I doubt you would notice the difference there. But what I get out of this is this Zephyrus is amazing that, before they used to have max Q GPUs in these, and it's got 165 watt, and it's keeping up with something like a musclebook, okay? A lot more watts go into this. And we will see that because we're going to see them gaming live now. Oh yes, it's happening, okay? We're going to compare these two for gaming. You're going to see live. Now you may not be able to hear me that well because they are both in their full performance mode, the best performance mode on both of them on dedicated GPU, so it's not using the integrated graphics as well. These both have MUX switch, so that's good. Remember, this is not going to beat this because thin and premium musclebook, okay? You can see there already, all right? Using 140 watts, using 175 watts. That's the GPU, okay? Now you don't see the temperature of the CPU on this. I tried to hook up hardware info, it's not working. I think it's an AMD thing. If you have any ideas, let me know, but I will tell you the temperature of the CPU after the run because I am running a telemetry. Now this watt meter is hooked up to this. This is power from the wall. Now one thing to note about this has a 300 watt power supply, and we're using about 260. Now gaming, it's not going to use any more watts. It's using the maximum amount of watts here, 175 watts on the GPU and 260 from the wall. Now to put it into perspective, the Alienware M17 can do 260 watts CPU and GPU together. So it actually uses nearly 300 watts. So a good 20 watts more than this and 20 watts more than a GE76 Raider, which would be very comparable to this in wattage output. Both basically the same. The Alienware maybe 20 more watts. Now that's a much more accurate way to measure performance is watts, because unless you're side by side, same Windows build, same driver, same conditions, doing it at exactly the same time, benchmarks really don't mean anything. because one day you have different drivers, different builds, different temperatures, etc. But the wattage will always hold true, barring thermal limits, of course. So let's see the difference between thin and premium and muscle book. We're going to see how much wattage we're using. This one here, I'll tell you how much watts the CPU was using at its max and its temperature after the run. So let's just do it. Go! It's go time. I will forward these screens a little bit, but there, right there is the GPU wattage. GPU wattage. That's mainly what you want to look at there. You can look at the temperatures too, GPU temperature, CPU temperature. Yeah, you can see there the difference. What is it, 10, 15 frames per second difference. 173 watts on the GPU, 140 watts on the GPU. That's the difference. That's all the difference there. There may be a bit of difference with the CPU, but mainly it's down to the GPU will be the performance difference. Look at this, in its maximum performance mode. It is overclocked a little bit in that mode. 80 degrees, no problem. I told you this Legion 7 is amazing. What a beast of a gaming laptop, and this one too, thin and premium. And look at it. Used to have max Q parts in these sort of laptops, and still 140 watts on that GPU. It's interesting, it is a 165 watt GPU and when using 140 watts, and this is a 175 watt GPU and it's using the actual maximum 175 watts. So, you know, obviously when this gets hot, being thin and premium, it can't do the 165 watts, even though it is a 165 watt GPU. Dynamic balance there with the GPU and CPU, so that's a bit nebulous what's happening there. I'll tell you the CPU temperature and wattage in a sec, but here we're getting only 30 watts on the CPU. Okay, so you got that big stonking CPU in here that can use 175 watts to get that killer 23,000 Cinebench score. But look, for gaming, we're only using 30 watts. And you can see there, 80 degrees, no problem whatsoever. It's quite actually warm here today in Melbourne. And you can imagine it's not going to go over 90 degrees. I know it doesn't. And you can see there 175 watts. And they're both the same settings, 1600p, exactly the same. And look at this thing here, 74 degrees on the GPU. So it's even cooler. I suspect the CPU will be cooler as well. It'll be interesting to find out how much watts the CPU and GPU are using. I'll see that at the end there. But consistent. None of these are throttling. Still doing the 170, 175 watts, and we're still doing the 140 here. Maybe this is dropped 5 watts, but that just could be dynamic. You can see there's the 5 watts. We're not using 29 watts on the CPU now. We're using 35. So that extra 5 watts has gone to the CPU. That's how it works, the balance, right? And this is just using 140 watts all day, all night. But the difference in FPS, 112 versus 19, like 117 versus 114, like the difference is so small considering the watt difference there. They're both loud, or actually they're not that loud. There's 2 gaming laptops going at once and it's not that loud. They're both in performance mode. So let's have a read of the decibels. Under 60 decibels, 57 decibels with both of them. Okay, there you go. 121 frames versus 116. You will not notice the difference between that. Like, seriously, you will not notice. Now let's have a look at the temperature of the CPU on this. What did it reach? Let's have a look at hardware info. We had a max of 88 degrees, so no thermal throttling there. Let's have a look here. Thermal throttle, no. Perfect. Both of them, perfect. The best thin and light premium performance you're going to get and the best muscle book performance you're going to get. Wolf, this is the only way to fly.